Man, Steve Kim, man, salute these. Hey, let's give Steve Kim guys a round of applause. Taking the time out of his day. Steve, man, I have a whole lot to talk with you about, man. A whole lot, man. Steve, we've been getting news left and right via Twitter, the weapon of choice. I had Rick Glaser on. I know you remember when Rick Glaser been dropping bombs about big announcement going to come from Canelo. He pretty much said what it was going to be. PBC was having financial issues with the $35 million guarantee for Canelo on escrow. And when Canelo did the announcement in Mexico, you know, he didn't say any of those things, and everybody was, you know, jumping on Rick Glaser and stuff like that. Come to find out that a lot of those guys are quiet now, and Rick Glaser was right. What say you about Rick Glaser?
Well, I think a lot of people owe Rick an apology. I don't know if they're going to get a lot of mea culpas, but Rick has kind of been on this story from the beginning, starting with last year, and it's clear that the PBC is having some issues. Now they don't have a network partner that's actually putting up any money. But, you know, as I told you in Las Vegas about 2.5, 3 weeks ago about Rick, you know, his batting average is pretty high. And I know that he works the phones a lot. He is connected in the business. He works in the business. He's been in this business for over 30 years. And over a course of time, you know, you're going to develop a source of contacts. You're going to have a networking system. And, you know, look, Rick's a very, very savvy guy. And a lot of the people that come out against Rick have nothing to do with the business. They're just fans who think they have a voice. And as I like to say, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And then you have, what is it about Rick that that he know a lot of information that some of these mainstream guys, you know, like the Raphaels and stuff, you know, he came out on, he was ahead of the curve on this. And some of those guys, they say, hey, what he said wasn't true, this and that, whatever, Espinosa's and stuff, like what he said about Showtime. And come to find out he was right about that. Even when Espinosa said that those rumors are false, Showtime is not going anywhere, and literally they folded like within a couple months later. So he knows a lot. That guy knows a lot. As it relates to Canelo, what say you about a lot of the stuff that's going on with Canelo, man, with the PBC and the money, the contracts? What do you think about all of this?
Well, I spoke to somebody that was intimately involved in some of the negotiations and is involved with Canelo, and he made it very clear. Within the parameters of the 3-fight deal, there were specific fighters involved, opponents, for specific amounts of money. And they started to change the opponents and the money. And I'm sure everyone's talked about or heard about the $35 million in escrow that they needed to put in. Look, Canelo, like any other fighter, has a right to have his contract lived up to and to get his money. Now, you could make an argument, and I know I've heard this, that he's avoiding David Benavidez. Okay, but that's not here or there yet. So there's still a chance he could fight him. But the bottom line is, Canelo signed for a deal that was breached by PBC. So when they say things like mutually agreed upon separation, well, yeah, when one side breaches, both sides can mutually agree to say, hey, we are now in arrears, and then you move on. And I was told late last week that negotiations had been going on, and once it was clear that the Charlo situation was very toxic, and I want to defend the PBC here a little bit. Even though they're the ones who put Charlo in the contract, I think they realized that Charlo fight, given what happened last September, to fight the other brother that's been very inactive, was going to be a dud. Really, I don't see how you would have sold that fight. Now, you can make an argument that Edgar Berlanga may be just as big a dud, because I think that fight has a lack of credibility, to be honest with you. But, you know, again, why is it that certain fighters can get their money, get the bag, and have their rights protected, and other fighters simply don't? I've always found that a little bit odd, Coach.
Yeah, Steve, I'm looking at the reputation. Like I was asking Rick Glaser, I say, man, it seems that you know, everything is falling apart at the seams And, you know, Rick is saying that nobody's seen Al since December. I pressed him on that. How do you know? And he told me how. He said he speaks with, and he said this publicly, he speaks with a lot of executives and lawyers and stuff, powerful people in the sport of boxing on a daily basis. So that's how we know a lot of his information on what's going on in the sport. But I'm like, man, so basically it was a case of he was holding the PBC to the letter on the contract that they're signed, and Al tried to change it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, right. That it really is that simple. There's a 3-fight deal with 3 separate opponents with 3 guaranteed minimum amounts. And I was told explicitly they tried to change the opponents and the amount. So, again, putting aside the Benavidez factor, the point is moot. At the end of the day, Canelo is one of the rare fighters that probably has the leverage to actually say, wait a minute, you're not doing this to me, and I have options, because as you've seen, he has a lot of suitors. Now, I asked my source, when do you think an announcement's going to be made? I was told this. The announcement of Canelo's next fight will be right around 7 to 10 days. Okay? And I also asked, will he still be fighting May 4th in Las Vegas? And what I was told was, unless something better comes along, that looks like the date that they will be fighting in Las Vegas.
So I do get Al Haymon's position. Hey, we can't put Jamal Charlo there because he's not right. But on the flip side, Canelo gonna say, look, that ain't my problem. When I initially signed this contract, we had 3 fighters on the table. So who were the 3 fighters? Was it both Charlo brothers? I'm hearing Errol Spence as well.
Right. I think we all heard the names. And this is the thing that I think people have to understand here. I don't believe that there was a gun put to either side's head to sign that deal. Both sides agreed to the deal. That's what a negotiation is. You lay out a deal, you propose it, you go back and forth, you amend it, you change it, and you come to a middle ground. And it's really interesting that somehow Canelo is supposed to be the guy that doesn't care about the money. I don't really care how much money he's made before. Look, this is what they do. They're prize fighters. Mm-hmm. But nobody forced PBC to make this deal. Now, this is just my personal belief. The reason why PBC signed off on the deal is that I believe that they were hoping that they would still have a network, whether it be Showtime or someone else, that could help fund this particular arrangement. Because if you're going to be in boxing as a major promoter and you're going to do pay-per-view, you need draws. Tank Davis is certainly a draw. Canelo is a draw. I guess you could say Ryan Garcia is a draw. And unless you're going to get Saudi Arabia money, like certain fighters are, the way you do it is through successful pay-per-views. But here's the problem. When you sign a deal with Canelo right now, and you're giving him $30 million plus, if you do the math, Coach, that generally means you have to do well over $800,000 at least to start breaking even. And then you got the live gate sponsorships and whatever. And if you lay out who was put on that contract, and let's say it was the 2 Charlos and Spence, maybe Spence would have been that one fight that gets over $1 million if he would have beat Terence Crawford. Yeah. Coach, he didn't beat Terence Crawford. That's when I thought the thing started to unravel a little bit over there.
Man, you know what, Steve? You hit the nail right on the head. You told me this from day one. You say, Coach, when Terence Crawford beat Errol Spence, the shockwaves that sent across boxing, it didn't send shockwaves with you and Mario, but the shockwaves it sent amongst, because at that like the Haymonites, the pro PBC media and stuff like that, they still had a hold, and they created this mystique about Errol Spence, right? Like this mirage, so to speak. And Crawford was, you know, the skinny kid, top-ranked Toby from Top Rank, who should have just signed the contract, take whatever they gave him, but he didn't go for that. And then for him to wiggle back in there and get that fight, you know, and he made an example out of Errol Spence. It's like he punished this guy for every time he was called top rank Toby. Every time they were saying his belt don't mean anything. Every time they talked about his mother, his family. Every time they said he was on the wrong side of the street. Whatever was said, it's like that night he took it out on him. And he beat him so bad that the air left the arena. And so you told me, you say, Coach, this is bad for them. This has really messed them up. And it turned out that you were right. You were right about that. Because everyone I spoke to, Coach, they said that.
Coach, let me just point this out. If you look at what happened last year in terms of the moves that they made, everyone lauded the PBC for bringing Canelo and Crawford to their side of the street. On the surface, I don't disagree with that. But look what they got out of it. They got one fight out of each guy, and one guy leaves right off the bat by wrecking one of their franchise fighters. Now, I don't really know if Errol Spence is going to ever fight again. I have my doubts. It doesn't seem like anything's really in the offing, and I get the sense the longer he holds out, the less chance he actually comes back, or it lessens the chance of him ever coming back at a high level. The other thing is, Canelo was supposed to anchor at least one half of their pay-per-view shows, not one half, but my understanding is the Amazon was led to believe that, hey, you're going to have Tank and Canelo. Well, half of that is gone now, at least for now. So, and in the meantime, one of them beat a Charlo, who, let's face it, they had diminishing value. But Crawford beating Spence was very symbolic in a sense that he didn't just beat Spence. He may have ended Spence, and he ended this mirage that somehow Errol is one of the greatest fighters in the world, that he's really pound for pound. And then all of a sudden, it got you thinking, are the best fighters really here on this side of the street at PBC? I mean, think about what happened last year, Coach. Stephen Fulton did not win a round against Inoue. Terence Crawford did not lose a round to Errol Spence. Jermell Charlo did not win a round against Canelo. And then I don't know if he's really with PBC anymore, but most people associate him with that company. Deontay Wilder did not win a round. I mean, outside of Tank Davis, who had a very good year, the PBC did not have a lot of great wins in 2023.
Well, so are you saying, do you think that those fighters, they was living in the mirage of advertising and promotion, because they controlled a lot of the narratives with the media outlets, and a lot of those fighters were protected. They were just protected fighters, and every time, and they got exposed when they fought, when they left outside the PBC bubble, the top guys?
I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, let's just put it this way, and I said this beforehand, I never had Errol Spence all that high in the pound for pound. I thought he was much closer to 10 than he was in the top 3, and I look at some of these other people's lists, and I don't really care about it. Everyone's allowed their opinion, but I really thought he was borderline pound for pound, and he was in that protective bubble. We have to be honest. There's a reason why they made Crawford wait 3, 4, 5 years, because they understood how difficult a fight that was. If he was just an Ordenis Ugas level fighter, they may have been more prone to make that fight sooner, and to be honest, to make sure that his contract and his agreement with Bob Arum ran out. And to be fair, I think much of that same dynamic actually exists with David Benavidez as it relates to Canelo. If David Benavidez was a much easier fight than most people believe, he may actually have agreed to do that fight. But, Canelo's Canelo. He's his own franchise. He's his own galaxy. And this is one thing that we've known about Canelo, his history. He will jump around. He will change promoters, change networks, change platforms. And I get the sense, and I've written this, he is now on the descent of a Hall of Fame career, and where he was once willing to take on uncomfortable fights like Austin Trout and Erislandy Lara and Gennady Golovkin. I wonder, and I wrote this yesterday in my column, K9's Corner, if he's really at the risk versus reward management stage of his career.
So that's the Floyd Mayweather. That's the Money Mayweather phase. Then the Money Mayweather, and I always put a clip on here where he said, when I was in that position, I could pick and choose who I want. You know how he started because I earned that right. So he's saying that Floyd said his last 15, the Money Mayweather, he was able to pick and choose who he wanted to fight and all that stuff there. And so in the Flomos, a lot of people who love Floyd Mayweather, they was cool with it. They was happy with it. They brag about that right now to this day. So you saying this is the part of the career that you think Canelo was in?
Well, I mean, Coach, as you like to say, one of the famous coachisms, if they didn't have a double standard, they'd have none at all.
Right.
And I call it the double standard, no standard. Why is it that certain fighters are lauded for being about that bag, getting their money, and playing 4D chess, and, they got to wait? Okay, if that is the standard, that's your standard. It's funny that Canelo, and this is what they must really think highly of Canelo, though, because they seem to put Saul Alvarez on a higher standard. And I've said this about life in general. The standards and expectations that you have of somebody, that's what you really think. And look, I believe that Canelo should be fighting David Benavidez soon. I've written it. I've said it. I'm not changing my mind. But that's a little bit of a different conversation than what has happened with the PBC in general. Because Eddie Hearn, I think, said today to a couple media members, hey, we can make that fight. It just doesn't have to be on the PBC platform. Yeah. So let's see if people still feel the same about this. We have to be honest about it, Coach. These are a lot of tribalists who have made this a cultural war that has nothing to do with real boxing.
Do you think that the chickens will be coming home to roost, meaning that all of these years, the narratives and the all of the Haymonites on social media and the Haymonite reporters out there, they had a good run. Even the YouTube channels, they had a good run. The PBC had a good run. But do you think that the chickens will be coming home to roost with you on the wrong side of the street? If you want to make a fight, you have to leave your promoter and network and come over here with us. Do you foresee DAZN, Matchroom, Top Rank, ESPN? They looking at tops like, yeah, no, we remember how you guys played the game. So if you want some of your top fighters, because y'all ain't got no money to make fights with us, they're going to have to leave their situation to come over here. Do you foresee?
Well, Coach, I think that's already happening. Coach, if you look at some of the fighters that are leaving, I don't know if you want to call it jumping ship, but Subriel Matias looked around and he said, you know what, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
I believe that Elvis Rodriguez, who's fought on PBC shows the last couple of years, he might be fighting Subriel Matias. That's what I've heard. He's in the running for that fight. There are other fighters like a Ray Vargas. He'll be fighting in Saudi Arabia within a couple of weeks. Yeah. So that process has already begun. And it'll be interesting to see within the next month or two, after March 30th, when that fight and the card takes place, then what? I mean, what is everyone told? Because as of right now, Coach, this is a fact. It's not an opinion. There's nothing on that boxing schedule that has the letters PBC attached to it outside of March 30th.
You know what? I haven't seen it at all. They're March 30th. After that, there's nothing. I'm hearing that they're supposed to have something go down in June, a non-pay-per-view fight. That came from Dan Raphael. That's it. Rick,
right, and Coach, remember this. Dan Raphael said at the soonest, or the earliest, right? So keep that in mind.
Oh, at the earliest. Yeah, he did say that at the earliest. So you're talking about the end of the first quarter, March 30th. You have Keith Thurman and Tim Tszyu, and Rolly Romero, crayon-eating Rolly Romero, and Isaac Cruz fighting on the undercard, and that's a pay-per-view. And you know that's going to be about $80 because that's how they roll. It's going to be $74.99 or something of that sort. And I'm going to tell you like I told Rick Glaser, I said, good luck with that. That shit is going to go quadruple plastic. I can promise you that.
That's the type of card, and I'm really a big Tim Tszyu fan, that, again, if that was on Showtime or some other premium network, I would say, that's a good night of viewing. But if you look at the pay-per-view numbers, outside of Canelo, and even his numbers are a little bit down, especially in relation to what he gets paid. And certainly the Ryan Garcia Tank Davis fight last year, which was a home run. Most pay-per-views nowadays underperform.
Yeah.
And I I don't know how many people can specifically go to Amazon to go buy a pay-per-view. This is all about viewing habits and tradition. And I also believe there's a lot of people that believe the PBC is toxic and don't like them. There's a real divide on social media. You know it, and I see it. There are certain people that just won't support other platforms. There are people that love the PBC that absolutely take pride in not supporting pay-per-views that are done by Matchroom on DAZN or Top Rank on ESPN. Well, that goes both ways. They have created this very toxic culture of tribalism. Yeah. And I, as you said, yes, it's coming home to roost.
Yeah, see, what I would say, I think where they messed up at was on social media, especially like the Booger Rays and the Espinosas and stuff. They, to me, in my opinion, they were pandering. They was pandering to the Haymonites and stuff like that, pushing a racial narrative that it shouldn't have never been. Dude, this is just boxing. This is just boxing. Let's stop the bullshit because, you know, the guy who you're capping for is getting money from white people. Let's be real. The money's coming from the white folks. So you guys are making this something that is not even not. It shouldn't be when all of the money's coming from the white folks anyways. So, bro, like, this is just boxing. Let's just make the big fights. They made it very, very tribalistic. They made it very, very toxic. And in my opinion, I think those chickens are coming home to roost. People, the other promotional companies, guys who are in power now, they're gonna be looking at you like, no, I remember that shit y'all did. No, they gotta bring their ass over here now. If they want these fights, they gotta bring over here. Stay on your island over there and die on the island. Cause some of them are gonna die on the island. Some of them are gonna stay over there and they're gonna go down with the ship. Some of them, you know. And let me share this with you. I'm looking at this post that was from Dan Raphael. Michael Benson retweeted it. He said, Al Haymons PBC reportedly was willing to give Canelo Alvarez his guaranteed purse for the Jamal Charlo fight in May, but only if he agreed to fight David Benavidez in September. Piggybacking off what we said in the beginning of the show, it's claimed that Canelo's 3-fight deal with the PBC initially set out guaranteed purses for various potential opponents. They did not name them. But Benavidez was never one of those said opponents. So he had a 3-fight deal that did not include David Benavidez. Okay, I want you to take that, keep that in your mental Rolodex. And Canelo did not want to agree to a reduced purse for the Jamal Charlo fight or face an opponent which initially wasn't agreed upon. This is what you said in the beginning. So he's confirming everything that you said. Hence, that's where the split came about.
Right. And look, do I like the two things can be true at once? Did PBC breach their original agreement? Well, it seems as though they did because Canelo Alvarez is no longer under the promotional umbrella, at least for the time being as we speak. But with that said, do I believe that Canelo is now playing a game of risk management? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand these fans that take such a dogmatic position and everything is black or white. Sometimes there's a gray area, and as I like to say, two things can be true at once. Because I'll be honest with you, I would not really want to support, or unless I've already said my piece on my yesterday's column, I don't think Edgar Berlanga belongs in the same zip code as Canelo right now. I don't even know if he's a top 10 super middleweight, and I get it that he's an undefeated Puerto Rican, he's been on TV, but I don't know if beating Predrag McCrory and Jason Quigley back-to-back qualifies you to be in that sweepstakes. Munguia, I'm okay with. Benavidez, in a perfect world, which we do not live in, would be the unanimous choice of most people. But there are other fighters out there, and Berlanga, he's very lucky that he's Puerto Rican. But can we be honest about it, Coach? He fought this past weekend in a hotel ballroom. It's not like he sold out Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, hotel. Yeah, that is true. Hey, I said, listen, you know what had me laughing? When Edgar Berlanga knocked out for Craig, you know, he jumped on the ropes. He was yelling like, Adrian! You know, like a Rocky.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, you did what you're supposed to. Dude, what do you want to cook it?
Hey,
you fed your kids. You got a job. You stayed out of jail. Come on, you did what you're supposed to.
Man, you don't beat up a tomato can and you jumping on the ropes like you don't knock out King Kong. I fought Godzilla. You know, I knocked out Godzilla, dude. You literally fought a layup. This guy was brought over here from from I think it's from Ireland, specifically to get you that knockout that you haven't had in your past 5 fights. So,
yeah, Coach, here's the issue. We got to be honest about this. I'm not a fan of Jamal Charlo or Jamal, excuse me, getting that fight right now.
Right.
He's had one fight in about, 2-3 years. He didn't blow me away against the one-legged faded Benavidez,
right,
who's moving up in weight. But I'm not so sure there's all that much of a difference between Charlo and Berlanga. Really, to be honest with you. That's like one's the cold or one's the flu. Which illness would you rather have? I'm not sure, but I know either of them is an illness I don't want. So, but again, the reality was there was an agreed upon multi-fight deal with specific opponents for a specific amount of guaranteed money. The PBC could not live up to the parameters or was unwilling to live up to the parameters of that deal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, I think Al Haymon, I get Al Haymon's position. Whoever's negotiating their contracts, because I don't know if it's Floyd Mayweather. I'm gonna ask you this question, Steve, because I asked Rick this, and I'm gonna hammer this home. One of my favorite fighters, Mr. Like I said before, he said that he makes $300 million a year. I have the video. Well, and the guy say, he said, like in my next investment, I'm gonna be making not $300 million a year. Sorry about that. $300 million a month. My next investment, I'm gonna be making $300 million a month. And the guy say, what investment is that? He say, real estate. He said, yeah, I agree with you. So the guy said, I agree with you. So, because Floyd always have these yes men that's interviewing him. They never ask him tough questions. They act like they're fans of Floyd, and anything he says, they just gobble it up. I'm like, the guy didn't even press him. $300 million a month, like, dude, that's $3.6 billion a year. Like you making more money than Jeff Bezos or just you up there. You making more money than a lot of these other guys. I make smart investments. So my question is this here: Mr. $300 million a month, and Floyd Mayweather did say that he is part owner of the PBC. If you're working with Al, you're working with me. There's no such thing as you working with Al Haymon and you're not working with me, because me and Al are one. So since you and Al are one, let you get some of this flamethrower. How come they are struggling with money when one of the bosses of the PBC allegedly, well, according to what he said, is making $300 million a month? They have plenty of money.
Well, it's clear that the ATM, the M does not stand for Mayweather, at least not anymore. That is a very good point that I've been thinking about. That, by the way, what is this real estate that Floyd is invested in? Is it the swampland in the Everglades? Anyway.
No. But skyscrapers in Dubai, skyscrapers in New York. You might, if you're in New York, you might see a skyscraper or two that Floyd Mayweather has investments in, and that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and don't forget, Gel Blaster sales have been really strong in 2024. Good first quarter for them. But that's a great question. But I will say this. PCC has a right to not lose any more money. And I think they're in that position. I think 7-8 years ago, they would have done this deal, right, because everything was about monopolizing the game of business, trying to drive everybody out. What I called the scorched earth policy, as I wrote for Max Boxing years ago when they first came into it. But now, I think they are now counting every dollar. I think they're actually on a budget. I think the situation is a little bit changed. I don't think that the term loss leader really exists for them anymore. Because we have to be honest, Canelo was a loss leader for the DAZN several years ago.
That's true.
They paid him an exorbitant amount, but they needed that branding. I mean, it was the good old days of the DAZN, Coach. There was no pay-per-view. Pay-per-view was dead, but it has risen up from the ashes like the mighty phoenix, right? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Good old days. But now here's the thing with the DAZN. They have to make some decisions, too. My understanding is the DAZN wants Munguia first, right off the bat. I heard there's a little bit of a disagreement where Canelo may actually prefer Berlanga first, and then Munguia, while the network, look, they want to make some money here. I'm not so sure the DAZN, based on what they paid and the numbers that we've heard, has ever really turned a profit on a Canelo fight. But again, a lot of those fights were when they were first out of the gate in America, and they needed somebody to anchor their boxing franchise, and they signed Golovkin and a bunch of other guys like Demetrius Andre, Danny Roman, Tevin Farmer, to, I would say, exorbitant deals because they needed to fill their roster. Well, they've settled in now. They need to be a viable business. And what is the basis of business? It's to make money. It is to put more profit margin into your books. And I don't know if they've ever done that. So, look, it's just not enough, in my view, for the zone to have Canelo. They got to start making some money now and actually make fights. And again, as I wrote, I'm going to be consistent. Of the available opponents, which means it's not Benavidez this time around, if it came down to Munguia or Berlanga, I'd like to ask the bulk of your audience, put it down in the comments, who would you rather see? I think Munguia is a no-brainer out of the two, Coach.
What's going on with David Morrell and Boots? I remember when I saw an interview with Bozy Ennis. He was on the I Hate Terence Crawford train and saying all types of stuff and this and that. And then I guess he was pandering to Showtime and PBC. He seems to be more on that side of the fence because he used a lot of their talking points. But now we want to be faithful to Showtime. Well, Showtime is dead. Remember the dead zone's supposed to be in the zone? Well, the dead zone actually turned out to be Showtime because they're dead.
Well, now it's no time.
Yeah,
it's no time.
Yeah, no time. You went from Showtime to no time. And he was loyal to a network that they didn't even have a contract with. Now, Boots is a promotional free agent or whatever, and Eddie Hearn is offering the money to come over there. But it seems that his father, who is his manager, they're trying to be loyal to a ghost. So what's going on with that? He's more PBC on that side of trying to get signed. I don't know. What's going on with him? Who is he going to fight next?
Well, Coach, if I lose you for a quick second, I'm in the elevator. Hold on. Let me make sure that we land. Okay. All right, Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
I don't know if you know this, and I don't think it's been widely reported, but it's not exactly a tight secret. Did you know Stephen Espinosa is advising Boots and Ennis?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, that's kind of my reaction, too. But so, look. We know where Espinosa's loyalties lie, right? Yeah, so here's the thing. You could be Eddie Hearn, Don King, anybody, and come up with an unbelievable package for Jaron Ennis, who I'm still very high on. I know people think he's overrated based on the fact he hasn't fought that many great guys, but at least for me, he passes the eye test. I think he's a spectacular young talent. I was one of the first guys on that bandwagon. I'm still on it, but I am a little bit dismayed by how this career has kind of played out the last year or two. But here's the thing. If you have an advisor whose loyalty is to Al Haymon or whatever's left of the PBC, I have a question. Do you think Espinosa will, in good faith, level really listen to another offer from a rival promoter like an Eddie Hearn?
No, sir, because everything he's going to do is going to be for the benefit of his boss, Al Haymon, more so than the fighter. And see, that's the problem. The fighter and his father has to realize that you were loyal to a network. They're dead. They're no time now. Now you're trying to be loyal to Al Haymon. Why? I have no damn idea. No one has seen this guy in 7 years. So and the guy who got fired from Showtime, the guy who ran Showtime boxing in the ground, Stephen Espinosa, is your advisor. Like, these guys are making dumb. Listen, between Bozy Ennis, him and the Benavidez team, they making, like, it seems, I don't understand the type of business moves they're making in boxing, but they're making some dumbass moves, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say this about Boots, who I really like as a young man. He's a very, very good individual, excellent fighter, great talent, but I remember when Mario and I had him on the 3 knockdown rule. That was about a week before his last fight, because that was in July. Because I think he fought a week before Spence Crawford. He said to us, he goes, after this fight, I'm going to have 1 more fight. So I'm going to have 3 fights. And we're like, great. It dawned on me, and this is how fast time goes now as you get a little bit older, Coach. Aren't we now about 8-9 months from that fight, Coach?
Yeah.
And think about this. This is the way the business works. I always tell people, this business works about 8 to 12 weeks ahead of the actual date, which means that when the calendar turns to March in about 2 days, Coach, If you do not have a fight lined up, signed, sealed, and delivered by March 1, that means you probably will not fight till at least June.
Yeah.
Think about that.
You know what? This is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a promo from the Saudis. I see the promo that they put out with Anthony Joshua and Ngannou, which is a fire promo. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have. Very good job on that.
Yeah, they did a great job on that. And I'm looking and I'm like, dude, Top Rank has had fights in January, February. They got shit in March, April, all the way up probably damn near June. Matchroom, Queensberry. And I'm like, dude, how are you this advisory company / promotional company, and you have all of these fighters, some of them are leaving now. You have all of these fighters, and you have only one fight card on the schedule so far. And it's at the end of the first quarter. Like, is this some kind of genius move that I'm not seeing? Because I don't have but a GED, but I have a master's degree in common sense. So is this like a Jedi, like a genius move, art of war type stuff that I just can't comprehend?
Well, Coach, you know that old saying, less is more? Sometimes, actually, more is more. Because when you are, what's one of my mantras? Activity matters. You got to get fighters out there fighting more often. You got to keep their tools sharp. You got to keep them in the habit of training and fighting. And you got to keep them in the public eye. All of this works together. If you look, one of these days, Coach, you ought to go to the PBC website, look at their roster of fighters, and just write down when was the last time they fought, and how many times they fought in the last 2 to 3 years. I think you'd actually be alarmed. And what they're doing right now, I don't see how that benefits the fighter or the company. And just the fact that, and then we'll go back to this, that Dan Rayfield says the first non-pay-per-view fight will be in June at the earliest. That means it could be July. It could be August.
It could be August.
It could be September. If I am one of those fighters who is not, Coach, if I'm one of those fighters who's not scheduled for March 30th, I'm actually wondering, what am I doing here?
Well, you got to understand, you have to be loyal to the code. You got to be loyal no matter what. Trust the plan. Trust the process. Al has bigger things in store, even though ain't nobody seen him in 7 years. But you got to trust the plan and the process, my brother. That's what you fail to realize, Steve.
Yeah, I guess. And that's a lot of the stuff they say at the cult. That's what Jim Jones said to a lot of people as they went to Guyana. But, I believe that the only way you move forward with a career is to fight. There's never been a career that was benefited from long stretches of inactivity. So I don't know what these mid-level guys are going to do. But, Terence Crawford now is a free agent. And speaking of which, Coach, look, Terence fought in July. He's got to get going. And I am being told these talks with Tszyu, I think they're more than just cursory level talks. I think they're pretty serious. I think there's something very substantial going on there.
Yeah. I'm hearing the WBO, the president of the WBO said that Paco said that, hey, they got some kind of deal or not a deal, but Terence Crawford is moving up, and he wants to be the first shot at Tszyu because he has the WBO strap. So he really needs that fight. I think that'll be a good fight. Tszyu, I think very highly of Tszyu. He can crack. You get what I'm saying? That's a dangerous fight for Bud, but he needs to try to at least get a couple of fights in. Now that he's finally free as a free agent out of that contract, he can move like he wants to move. Let me ask you this. Why they didn't go the DAZN route or show any willingness as a record label staff and as a crew to work and do business with the Saudis over there in the Middle East?
Because this is my belief. He probably would not have, and him being Al Haymon, would not have the control top to bottom that he craves and that he demands. I was also told during this process, before the Amazon deal was announced, that the DAZN's vision would be, hey, you will be put into a pool where we're making real fights. Your guys might get beat. You guys may have to send them to other places, but we're going to make fights. See, one of the things about having a platform that you control exclusively is that you control the matchmaking. And look, there's not that many top-ranked guys that lose on ESPN, like the prospects, so they control it. Same thing with Matchroom, with the DAZN. That's one of the reasons why you want to be paired up with a network that's going to give you a specific amount of dates, because it allows you to kind of develop the fighters at their own pace. Now, when it comes to pay-per-view, there's an expectation, hey, you got to risk something because you're charging people a lot of money for this, and we want quote-unquote real fights. But, you know, another thing Stephen Espinosa said in that vein, Coach, didn't he say that they were working on another network, PBC?
Yeah, they're working on another network, so that's going to be 13. You know, there's going to be 13. So I'm trying to figure out which fool is going to be willing to give the PBC money. Like, my thing is obviously they have a bad reputation out here in boxing from a business standpoint. If you're running through networks like toilet paper and you $900 million, you still owe to Wilder and Reed, well, McQuarrie now, because they got bought out by Wilder and Reed got bought out by McQuarrie. So you're $900 million in the negative. You know, you run it through networks like water. It doesn't show stability. It doesn't show stability as a company. That's for one. And two, who's going to be willing to? Who's going to be the sucker to say, "Hey, we're going to give y'all a whole bunch of money"? Like, where's that going to come from now?
Yeah, you know, P.T. Barnum said that there's a sucker born every day. I just wonder, have they run out of them?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, so it's the control. So again, you know, as a fighter, you got to say, look, man, I need what's done that's best for me as a fighter. So I can't. The reason why I don't blame, I used to blame Al for a lot of stuff, but I don't anymore, because these fighters, they have to be smart and say, look, man, it's time for me to put my foot down and let's not go along to get along. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I can't get fights, but I don't know what's in their contracts. Maybe they can't say anything from what I'm hearing. I'm hearing they have a no disparagement clause in their contract. So some of these guys, the smaller guys who people don't even know about, they're done for the most part.
You know, when you are a fighter, you have to realize one thing. Nothing can disrupt time. Time marches forward. And your physical prime is so precious that people say, no, we're keeping these fighters rested and safe. I actually look at it completely different, given what I know about fighters, what I've been told, my conversations with trainers, most of them who fought professionally. I think that's time squandered. You are taking away a valuable asset because time waits for no man. It marches on, regardless. And I do feel bad for a lot of these fighters. I think a lot of these fighters, some of them did drink the Kool-Aid and, you know, wanted to be a part of this system, and they'd make a lot of comments about how they had it good and easy. And I even think some of them are now regretting this. Like Coach Stephen Fulton, still a very good fighter, obviously got against Inoue in Japan. Now, they fought on that Tuesday before Spence Crawford. So that's 8 or 9 months. Think about this. He himself has actually tweeted, hey, I need to get going here. This inactivity killed me. I'm never going to let it happen. Well, here's the problem. Stephen Fulton does not have a fight scheduled right now, okay? And in a way, not only did he fight in December, he has a fight in May scheduled, and 2 other fights after that should he come out clean. You see the difference? You're telling me that does not impact a fighter either negatively or positively being active?
Yeah, he's active. He's active. And you're right about that. Inoue don't had. Yeah, he had a fight after Fulton, and he's having another fight, like you said, a couple of more fights this year. He's active. That's one thing I will say about the Top Rank. They do keep their fighters active. You know, you're going to fight over there at least twice a year, if not.
Yeah,
more.
if you want to. I mean, look, there are certain things going on. The Shakur Stevenson situation is interesting. I made a couple phone calls. Shakur looks like he's going to come back in the summer because of all the stuff that went on. So that stench of that fight with De Los Santos will last us all the way into the early summer. And unfortunately, that contract extension that was reported on about 3-4 weeks ago returned down a 5-fight extension with a $3 million minimum. And again, that's the starting point. People have to understand, minimum means that's the least amount of money you're going to get. You can get more based on the fight.
Right.
Unfortunately, with what has transpired, I don't think that offers any more on the table, Coach.
Yeah. So well, my thing is, where would Shakur go next? If he leave top rank, where would he go next? Because
I think everyone assumes it would be Floyd / PBC. But I ask you this question:
he'd be a fool if he
when's
do
the last
that.
time they signed an elite, world-class fighter, PBC, a young one, at that stage? They signed Crawford last year, who towards the end, and Canelo towards the end. But I'm talking about a guy that has another half of his career to go at least.
Well,
When's the last time
they got
signed a
Andy
guy?
Cruz. The people saying people are high on the pro PBC guys are high on Andy Cruz. They say he's the next. They got Andy Cruz. They have Frank Martin. Frank Martin is over there. They got Rolling Romero. Rolling Romero.
Okay, yeah, okay. They say Rolly Romero. I don't say Rolly Romero. But Shakur may get a dose of reality in the sense that he's going to find out that currently this is more or less of a seller's market. And coming off of that type of fight, I don't know. Do you look at him as a hot free agent that everyone's going to want to sign?
Nah, I don't see it. And I think the bad thing about it is the best way to get a bad performance taste out of the buying public's mouth is to follow it up with another fight.
Quickly as possible.
If possible. Follow it up with another fight, put on a good performance. But now you're waiting so long to June, so I don't know exactly what's going on with that. Let's pivot a little bit. What do you think about Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney? I didn't see the press conference, but what say you about that fight?
I would be stunned if that fight is close. I think Devin Haney wins that fight pretty handily. 9-3, 10-2.
Yeah, me too. I think he's gonna. I think Ryan's gonna get frustrated.
I just believe that Haney is too sound. He's too technically grounded. And I said this 3-4 years ago. I always thought Devin Haney was the most stable guy out of all of that group of guys with Ryan, Tank, Shakur. Devin, to me, and I've known Devin for a while. I have a pretty good relationship with him. He's the most grounded guy. Bill Haney does most of the boisterous talk. I've heard him on your network.
That's true.
where he filibusters, and you got to stop all that junk once in a while. But Devin Haney's a very, very ring-savvy, high IQ fighter. And, maybe it was just an extraordinarily bad night for Regis Prograis. But, Coach, I was really impressed by how he looked at 140 against Regis back in December. He looked like a new guy with those extra 5 pounds.
Yeah, he did. And this is the thing. Now, this is why I'm picking Devin Haney to beat Ryan Garcia. I think Devin Haney is a little bit more disciplined than Ryan in the ring and in the corner. You won't see Devin Haney is going to listen to the instructions, and he's going to execute the game plan. Ryan Garcia, there's no telling what in the hell Ryan going to do. We saw him in his last fight. He was doing, I guess, whatever version of the shoulder roll, bending over. I call it the booty roll. And he was like Derek, like he was just going off the script. And Derek James was yelling at him in the corner, like, man, what the hell are you doing? Stop doing that shit. You're not Floyd. Stick to what we worked on. So I'm going to go with the fighter that's going to stick to the game plan to get the victory versus the guy who's going to be trying shit. Because Devin Haney is not the guy you want to get in the ring and just try some shit with.
Devin Haney, in my view, as he's alluded to, is the more disciplined tactical fighter. And if they have a game plan to neutralize that left hook, not step in, not hang a curveball, not leave any openings, as opposed to Ryan, who I believe is very loose technically. I think there's more sizzle than steak. I talk to the people that I talk to that I trust, that I think probably have better eyes than I do. I don't know if anyone's actually picking Ryan Garcia. Now, can Ryan get lucky with the lottery left hook? Yeah. I mean, in theory, anyone can. But if you're playing the odds and you're going by across the board, what is most likely to happen? The consensus that I'm getting, Coach, is Devin Haney by wide decision.
Wide decision. I totally agree with that. Subriel Matias is now over there at Matchroom. Do you foresee him having difficulties getting fights, or you think he'll become more active over there at Matchroom?
Look, if people want the belt and they're offered enough money, but that's a very good question because, Coach, he brings a very tough, physical, grinding style. You come in one way, you'll leave the other. Like, he alters fighters physically, it seems like. You know, I was actually there ringside, had to cover that up close with the unfortunate death of Maxim Dadashov. I actually had to go to the hospital and cover that whole thing throughout that weekend. I've seen firsthand the type of damage that man can dole out. So, but again, fighters today have to realize you're not fighting that often. Can you really afford to turn down a title shot if you're going to get a few couple $100, $1,000? That's one of the things that's amazing is that fighters today think that these title shots come along once every week. It doesn't. So, you know, in the beginning, look, I think Elvis Rodriguez has offered that fight. If there's enough money, that's reasonable. I believe they're going to take that fight. Pretty good matchup. Elvis, southpaw, he can bang a little bit. We'll see if he can go through 36 minutes of that hell. But now that he's with a promoter who I hope, and Eddie's really good at this, at drumming up interest and making him more of a priority than he was at PBC, and if, you know, make him a thing in Puerto Rico, I think there's a shot that at the very least he'll have a productive run.
What Puerto Rican legends? Well, it's kind of hard to say, but from a punching power standpoint, that dude hits hard, bro. Like you say, it's punishing getting in the ring with him. And I do understand why quite a few of his opponents, they just quit in the corner. They're like, man, we're not going to continue to go through this shit. You know, like, we can't beat this guy. So I do understand that, because you have that mystique of this guy got a body on his record. And, you know, it hurts me to say that, because you don't want to see nobody die in the ring. This guy has family and stuff like that. You don't want to see that. But it's going to be, I don't know, Steve. I just think, man, unless he shows some holes in his wrinkles, like some holes in his game, wrinkles in his game or whatever, you're going to have a style like maybe of a Devin Haney to beat that guy. I'm not saying Devin will beat him, but you're going to need a style like that.
Remember this, Coach. Matias did lose on the Fury Wilder rematch undercard. He came in not in great shape. He overlooked this Armenian. But when they had a rematch, he was much more focused and he ran him over.
Yeah.
So, you know, Subriel has beaten himself. It happens. Subriel has beaten himself. Coach, another guy that I wanted to mention, because I feel bad for him, because I think he's a pretty good fighter. And I think the sanctioning bodies are working hand in hand with the PBC to basically screw him. Carlos Adames.
Oh, my.
Adames, what they're doing to him is criminal. I think that is so unfair. And unfortunately, though, he is not really a priority at that company, and he may not have independent management that's going to have enough guts to say, hey, guys, we're going to have our rights fulfilled. What they are doing to him is wrong. When you talk about the game of boxing being unfair, a lot of the times I think that's overblown, but what is happening to him, I feel bad for the guy. The guy wants to fight. He's a hard-nosed fighter. He earned a position with the BC, but Mauricio Sulaiman obviously does business with that company, and to allow any champion to go more than 2 years without defending a title, that's wrong. There's no justification for it.
Steve, listen. I'm glad you said that. I got 3 more points, and I'm gonna let you go. Now we on Mauricio Sulaiman. Mauricio Sulaiman, listen, he seems like such a nice guy. Like, he's just a nice guy. But, man, let me tell you something, man. And I don't want you to say anything on this, but he seemed like a nice guy. But this guy seemed like he's crooked as a $3 bill. Him, say somebody's like, how in the hell do you justify, like, Steve, we are in the era, outside of fighters who really putting in work, like a New Way the Monster, Baron Rodriguez, all of the women in boxing, you know, Baturviev, Bivol, you know, certain fighters are the ones who are not as popular. They're really putting in work, getting it, you know, doing it the way you're supposed to do it. But Mauricio Sulaiman, like, how do you justify certain fighters not defending their titles for almost going on 3 years? Mandatories don't mean anything in boxing today, Steve. Belts don't mean nothing. You know, ranking systems, you fought to work your way up to #1. That means you're going to get a shot at the title. That shit don't mean anything anymore with certain promotional companies. It seems that way. You know, with the sanction bodies.
I actually entitled one of my columns for a few years back. I called it the WPBC. There's no doubt about it. There's an alliance that Mauricio has made with that organization, and while also kowtowing to Canelo Alvarez, so they can't afford not to be in that business. And they go against their own rules. They don't follow their own guidelines and regulations. I've looked them up. I pointed them out. I don't think there's anything that can be done, unfortunately. You know, I do my best to kind of highlight it. I wrote something for Ring Magazine last year. I mean, look, in their own guidelines of the WBC, champions are actually supposed to defend their title twice a year. That one time for 5 years straight. And it gets maddening because here's the problem, Coach. When you do that and you create gridlock in any weight division, you're not just holding up a fighter that's ranked number one. You're actually holding up at least 14 or 15 other fighters in your rankings. And sometimes these guys give you sanctioning fees for elimination bouts, regional belts that give you ratings. And then you get to number one, or you're named an interim champion or champion of whatever. There's an expectation within due time there's going to be an announcement that, hey, these two have to fight, get into negotiations, or go to a first bid. Coach, certain fighters are now basically allowed to squat on titles, and I think it's helping to kill the sport.
And for the life of me, they don't see that. Like, I know Mauricio's full of shit when he says, well, you know, it's to the discretion of the WBC that, you know, Carlos Adames, he's very happy. He's the interim, he's our champion. And it's like, I say, oh my God, when he go to doing that, it reminds me, and all politicians do it. When I hear him speak, I hear Booger Ray Leonard. When I hear Booger Ray speak, I hear Bill Haney. It's like all of them speak the same way, you know, and shout out to all of those guys I just mentioned. But when they go to talking in circles, you ask them a direct question, they can't give you a direct answer. It's, you know, well, see what it is, you know, when I was watching Tom and Jerry, when I was 8 years old, cartoons was different back then than where they are now. And I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, Coach, look at Adames' situation right now. He beat Julian Williams in the summer last year, right? Okay, so he's going on 8-9 months without a fight. And I believe he's the interim champion. He's been ranked pretty high for a while. I go back to what I said about 15, 20 minutes ago. Time is precious, but a fighter's time does not last forever. And look, I'm not saying he's anywhere close to being an old fighter, but Carlos Adames right now is in his prime earning years. He should be fighting for the title, then winning the title, then defending the title, and hopefully unifying it and really upping his value as a fighter each fight, right? Coach, you can't do any of that if you're sidelined. It doesn't work.
No, you're right about that. He's sidelined. He can't get in the door. And then you have, explain this to me. How did Edgar Berlanga become?
Well,
this shit is hilarious.
Again, more business. The WBA, they wanted to line up. They wanted to line up a fight where they would be involved with Canelo Alvarez.
So
it's really that simple. And unfortunately, a guy like David Morrell, who's a hell of a fighter. I really like David. I think David is a dangerous, big, strong guy that nobody really wants to fight. And, you know, they just jumped him. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm David Morrell, wait a minute, why am I even winning this regular WBA belt? If the regular belt, in theory, should be that I'm always one step away and I'm next in line to win the real belt. But again, the WBA, they have a relationship with certain fighters and promoters. And unfortunately, guys like David Morrell, who don't bring a lot financially to the table, they're jumped. And it's unfortunate because I think David Morrell, despite his relative lack of experience, I think he's one of the better super middleweights in the world.
I mean, how did Al Haymon allow that to happen to his fighter? But I do get it. I understand. I want to end this with this. Tank Davis. Tank Davis seems like he's a very, very loyal guy. He's going to be down with the code and stuff like that. He's Haymon. That's one of Haymon boys, Al Haymon boys, stuff like that. So no matter what, he's going to do. You know, he's going to stay. I think he'll go down with the ship. To be honest with you, Adrian Broner finally jumped ship. But what say you about Tank? Tank made a lot of money fighting Ryan Garcia. Prior to that, he didn't make that type of money, and after that, I don't foresee him making that type of money unless he fight a Ryan Garcia again at 140 or fight Haney's or whatever at 140 or whatever. So, What say you about him? What you think he's going to do to earn his next big money payday? Because I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of money fighting Frank Martin.
You know, Coach, I had heard for the last month or so that Tank had made it very clear that he wanted in the neighborhood of what he received last April for facing Ryan Garcia.
You're talking about?
So I was a little bit surprised.
Are you talking about the his guarantee? I heard his guarantee was like $5 million. Is he talking about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I had heard that his demands were that, hey, I'm in a new stratosphere and this has to be the new level for me. And so I was a little bit surprised that he had agreed to take to Frank Martin. So now my question, I wonder what his guarantee is. But I think it's time for him to get back into the ring. And fighters have to understand one thing. Not every fight, especially if it's pay-per-view, is worth the same. There are certain fights that are going to be worth 20 to 25 million. When you do over 1 million buys and you have that type of demand. There's other fights that you're going to get a lot less money. But you've got to stay active. And I think that's one of the things that's stifling the business is the contracted minimums that are very rigid and that don't really give a lot of flexibility. They will actually at times be very detrimental to a fighter because the promoter will just say, you know, we're not putting you out there again because we're in this to make some money, not lose it. That's the reality of the situation that no one wants to talk about. But regardless of what Tank is getting against Martin, I'm glad he's got something going because he's got to get out there. I don't think it serves him any good to be out there saying, hey, if I don't get Ryan Garcia money or what I got late April, I'm not going out there. That to me is the worst thing that he can do. He's a legitimate draw in several markets. With the right opponent, he can do really big numbers, but you got to continue to move. You got to continue to move the brand.
So why did he turn down the money that was offered to him from the Saudis and offers didn't even negotiate with anyone and Eddie Hearn? Why is he doing that?
Because this is what I call platform protection. Because if you take those deals, you're off the Amazon PBC island, and Al Haymon ain't having it. He needs to use him on his platform. That's why. So
they pretty much still own Tank from a standpoint of
yeah. I'm like, look, I never thought Rolly Romero was going to take the Ryan Garcia fight. Wouldn't be allowed to. Yeah. And you see what he said? He goes, I want to be an Amazon superstar. Okay, go ahead. Good luck.
Well, it goes back to what I said. Do the advisor works for the fighter, or does the fighter works for the advisor?
Well, that's a very, very loaded question, and I'd almost think it's a rhetorical question. But you're right. I know where you're going with this, yeah. and I do not disagree. But I just think it's amazing that a very limited guy like Rolly Romero is not getting the opportunity to make another good payday against Ryan Garcia to kind of go on without a safety net against Pitbull. And I think he's admitted it's actually for less money.
He did.
How does that make sense?
No, Steve, not only that, he said he bragged about, I turned down a big money fight to fight Ryan Garcia, and which was an easier fight, and I agreed to take on a harder fight and make less money. So I'm a smart businessman. And I say this crayon-eating mofo went on, literally admitted that, I turned down more money. Like, what type of, I wonder what Booger Ray said to him to get him to, look, we're going to pay you $5 for the fight, a tougher fight in Esau Cruz. Then, but instead of taking 1,000, see, you can make $5 million or $3-4 million fighting Ryan Garcia. But don't worry about him. We're going to turn that down. And we got a good $350,000 for you over here to fight Pitbull. And for you to get on social media and brag about that, as though that was some kind of genius business move, befuddles me.
Well, no one's ever accused him of being Mensa or a valedictorian. But again, I remember years ago, this had to be about 6-7 years ago, when the Manny Pacquiao business was still going on with Top Rank. They offered Danny Garcia about $4 million to face Pacquiao. Now, you would think that's a great payday and it's an opportunity to be on the biggest stage in boxing. And if you beat Pacquiao, now you're really cooking, right?
Right.
Danny Garcia was never really given that opportunity to accept that fight. This is all about control, playing cheap away, and fortifying your own platform and making sure, at least with them, nobody goes on the other side of the street. I still remember when Jose Ramirez fought Maurice Hooker on the DAZN. And Top Rank made it very clear, like to Jose, you're making a lot of money here. We're not going to keep you from it. Go to the DAZN, come back with both belts.
Right.
You owe it to your fighters to do that because these guys don't get to fight a lot anymore, and these opportunities are very, very rare.
Steve, I want to thank you so much, man. We'll have you on the show for an hour. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Is there any? Let everybody know about just all of the platforms that you're on. Three knockdown rule and stuff like that. How people can get in
the 3 knockdown rule. We took a week's hiatus. Mario had some business to take care of with NBC. That'll be back next week. And then I also do regular segments. I was on today with Jason Whitlock on the Blaze Network on his show Fearless. And if you want to follow me on social media, my Twitter is @323 or Steve Kim 323. So once again, that's @SteveKim323. If you want to follow me on Instagram, that would be Steve Orale Kim. That's Steve ORALEKIM. And as always, Coach, I enjoy what you do. You do a great service for the boxing fans, doing what you do 5-6 days a week, keeping the fans entertained and informed. And I'll just continue to listen. I really respect and enjoy what you do.
I appreciate that, Steve. Before you go, I want to ask you a question. How can I get in contact with you if I want to send you a gun emoji?
Well, you can do it on Twitter. I think they have a gun emoji. One of the PBC house writers was very disdainful of me. I think I hurt someone's feelings. Some guy that earned a paycheck through Al Haymon, very upset that we are having some fun at the expense of the PBC, our good friends there. But I don't know what else to say. I mean, I try to tell the truth here. But, look, it'll be interesting. I'm going to write something tomorrow, Coach. And I know me and you convert. I want to talk to the fans about the double standards and the no standards that they have. Is that, are we treating this as people that excuse and enable business decisions, which is fine, or are we going to put them to the fire every single time to make fights and to do what's right for the sport? Because I see a sliding scale of standards, and it's amazing how, and someone pointed this out to me on Twitter, Tank and Canelo in a lot of ways are doing the exact same thing. But the very same people are praising Tank but ripping Canelo. Mm-hmm. Why? That needs to be examined.
All right.
Oh, yeah. So one other thing. If you want to read my stuff, go to snack.com, snac.com. You've had Victor Conte on your show a few times. Great interview. Right. And my column is called K9's Corner. The letter K, number 9. So it's K9's Corner at snack.com.
All right. Steve, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you. And I'll probably see you at the next fight. Would you be at the Haney fight or no?
I will be. What fight am I going? I'm going to the Oscar Valdez Liam Wilson fight, and I'll let you know what other fights I'm going to, Coach.
All right. I'll talk to you. All right. Salute, man.
Steve Kim.
All right,
Coach.
Man, I'm out of here, bro. Let's go.